Breaking news. Ukrainian defense tech has just stolen the entire spotlight at UMEX. It is Tuesday, January 27, 2026, and look, the global defense landscape just shifted right under our feet. And we aren't just talking about, shiny prototypes in glass case. We're talking about technology forged in the fires of actual combat that is outshining the global giants on their own turf. If you stand with Ukraine and you want the truth about the future of combat, you really need to. Subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex.
And I'm Maria.
And in this latest deep dive by Defense Report, we're giving you the sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military tech, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover the Sovereign Crucible. We're taking you straight to Abu Dhabi to the AD&S Center where the 2026 Unmanned Systems Exhibition UMEX just wrapped up. But the kicker is, while everyone expected the usual massive defense contractors to dominate, the real buzz, the kind that had generals and procurement officers whispering in the corridors, was all about Ukraine.
It was a defining moment, really. Trade shows are usually about potential. You see a concept and you think, okay, maybe in 5 years.
Yeah.
But Ukraine traveled to Abu Dhabi and they just flipped the script.
Right.
They didn't show off models of what might work. They showed systems that are winning battles right now. They completely redefined the standard from, theoretical performance to combat resilience.
And we have some stories today that go so far beyond the headlines. We're going to look at a land robot, a literal machine on tracks that held a frontline combat position entirely on its own for 45 days.
That story, it completely changes the calculus of infantry warfare. And we're also going to examine a sea drone that has evolved from a simple suicide vessel into a floating rocket launcher.
A rocket launcher.
Capable of bombarding shorelines.
And maybe the most sci-fi part of all this.
Yeah.
A navigation system so smart it doesn't need GPS or even a pilot to hit a target with sub-meter precision. So grab your coffee or maybe something stronger because we are diving deep into the Sovereign Crucible.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so set the scene for us first. UMEX 2026 in Abu Dhabi. By the numbers, this thing was huge.
It was massive. We're looking at over 37,000 visitors, nearly 400 exhibitors. On day 2 alone, they signed, 1.4 billion dirhams in deals?
Oh.
But you have to look past the spreadsheet. The story is the vibe shift. Usually these expos are all about the exquisite class of weapons, the billion-dollar platforms, the shiny jets, the things that look great in a parade.
The Ferrari of defense. Great to look at, expensive to maintain, and you're terrified to even scratch it.
Exactly. But this year, all the buzz was about attritable tech. Now, for those not in procurement, attritable is a crucial concept. It means a system is cheap enough that you can afford to lose it in combat, but capable enough that the enemy has to spend expensive resources to try and stop it. And the Ukrainian delegation, led by NAIDI, that's their National Association of Defense Industry, and the Brave One Innovation Cluster, they were the absolute masters of this.
Right, because for them, this isn't some market trend, it's survival. They've been living in what we're calling the Sovereign Crucible.
Precisely. A crucible melts down raw materials to forge something stronger. And Ukraine has had to innovate while being shelled. So when they showed up at UMEX, they pulled off a demonstration that, well, I think historians are going to look back on it as a turning point.
You're talking about that demo for the Polish delegation. I read the briefing on this, and honestly, it sounds like a magic trick.
It really does, but it was pure engineering. So picture the scene. You have the Polish head of Unmanned Systems Forces standing at the NEAGI booth in Abu Dhabi. The Ukrainian operators, they hand him a standard controller.
Okay.
He takes it, and he proceeds to successfully remotely control a ground robot and a strike UAV. But here's the catch. Those robots weren't in the parking lot. They were in a field in Ukraine.
Just to clarify the physics here, we're talking about controlling a robot in a war zone in Eastern Europe. From a convention center in the UAE, that's, 3,000 miles away?
Yeah.
The latency alone should be an absolute nightmare.
And that's why it's so impressive. It demonstrated not just their robotics, but the maturity of their secure, long-range command and control architecture. It's one thing to fly a drone via Starlink when you're 5 kilometers away.
Sure.
It is another thing entirely to do it across continents with military-grade encryption and, almost no lag. It proves their concept of remote war is an operational reality.
And clearly, the international community sees the value. It looks like the checkbooks are opening up.
Oh, they are. Brave One, which is Ukraine's Defense Innovation Cluster, think of them as a wartime DARPA. They just launched a new 3.3 million euro grant program with the EU.
Okay.
And they're focusing specifically on high-speed interceptors and radar. This isn't charity. This is the EU realizing that investing in Ukrainian tech is the fastest way to upgrade European security.
It makes perfect sense. If you want to know how to shoot down a Shahed drone, you don't ask the guy who wrote a paper on it. You ask the people who are shooting them down every single night. Which brings us to the next segment, the sky. We know the air war has changed. It's not about dogfights anymore. It's this invisible war.
Right, the aerial evolution. And to understand why Ukraine's drones are so different, you have to understand the environment they fly in. The biggest challenge in Ukraine right now is Russian electronic warfare, or EW.
Let's break that down for a second. When we say EW, we're mostly talking about jamming.
Right, it's noise. The Russians blast these massive amounts of radio noise on the frequencies that drones use for GPS and for their control signals. If you fly a standard, off-the-shelf commercial drone anywhere near the front line, it doesn't get shot down. It gets lobotomized. The GPS scrambles, the video feed cuts, and it just falls out of the sky.
So the Ukrainian drones at UMEX were all pitched as EW hardened. How did they actually solve this?
They solved it through modularity and resilience. Let's look at Ukraspec systems. They showcase the PD2. We've seen earlier versions, but this 2026 iteration is a real workhorse. It has a modular VTOL upgrade.
Vertical takeoff and landing.
Yep.
That's huge for the field. It means you don't need a catapult or a long runway. You can launch it from a muddy clearing in a forest somewhere.
Exactly. You snap on the VTOL module, it goes up like a helicopter, then it flies like a plane for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Then you have the Shark M, this is their deep recon specialist. They boosted the battery capacity by 170%.
Wow.
So it gets 7 hours of flight time now. But its strategic capability is that it can act as a signal repeater.
So like a Wi-Fi extender for the
A
battlefield?
very hardened, encrypted Wi-Fi extender, yes.
Right.
It just extends the horizon. If you have a strike drone that needs to hit a target 60 kilometers deep, it might lose connection with its operator.
Right.
But if the Shark is loitering halfway there, it just relays the signal. It lets Ukrainian forces reach deeper behind enemy lines without losing that human-in-the-loop control.
But the biggest reveal in the air domain, at least from a manufacturing standpoint, has to be Project Octopus.
Project Octopus. It is a great name. And this is a massive joint venture between the UK and Ukraine. We were talking 200 million pounds of backing. They've set up a factory in Mildenhall, UK, to mass produce interceptor drones.
Interceptor implies air-to-air. So these are drone hunters?
They are drone hunters, exactly. They are designed to hunt down and destroy one-way attack drones like the Shaheds. And this addresses the cost curve problem, which is the single biggest economic headache in modern air defense.
I mean, you just can't keep shooting down $20,000 Shahed drones with $2 million Patriot missiles.
You'll go bankrupt before the enemy runs out of drones.
So Project Octopus is about fighting cheap with cheap.
Fighting cheap with smart. It's about mass-producing an affordable aerial shield that can physically ram or detonate near these incoming threats.
That is a total game changer for air defense economics.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to something you mentioned on jamming. If the Russians are jamming GPS across the whole front, how are these drones navigating? I mean, even with a repeater, if the drone doesn't know where it is, it's useless.
And that leads us to the cognitive edge. This is where the tech gets really, really interesting. One of the standout companies at the show was Bavovna AI.
Bavovna. That name is kind of an inside joke, isn't it? It means cotton, but in Ukraine, it's slang for the look of a distant explosion.
A bit of dark humor, yes. But their technology is incredibly serious. They showed off a hybrid inertial navigation system powered by AI. And the headline feature is that it doesn't need satellites.
Okay, walk me through this. Inertial navigation systems, INS, they've been around for decades. Submarines use them, but they always drift. Over time, without a GPS fix, the error builds up and you get lost. How did they fix the drift?
They fixed it with sensor fusion and machine learning. So imagine you're walking through your house in pitch darkness. You can't see, but you can feel the floor. You know roughly how long your stride is.
You feel the air currents from the AC vent.
Exactly. Your brain builds a map based on all these non-visual inputs.
So the drone is literally feeling its way through the air.
In a way, yes. The system takes data from gyroscopes, accelerometers, airflow sensors. But the crucial part is it uses AI models that are pre-trained on that specific aircraft's flight physics. It creates a memory, or a sort of digital twin of how that drone moves.
So it knows that if the engine is at 50% power and the nose is pitched up 2 degrees, it should be moving at a specific speed.
Precisely. So even if the GPS says signal lost, the drone's brain says, no worries, I know I've been flying north for 10 minutes, and based on the drag and the wind, I am exactly here.
The stats on this are just wild.
They are. The hardware weighs only 1.7 pounds, about 800 grams. It allows for autonomous missions up to 250 kilometers with 99.98% accuracy. They call it air tower mode. It can take off, hover, do its mission, and land, all without a single satellite signal.
That basically renders GPS jamming obsolete. If you can't jam the brain, you can't stop the drone electronically.
It forces the enemy back to kinetic interception, physically shooting it down, which is so much harder and more expensive than just flipping a jamming switch. It restores the offensive advantage.
Incredible. Okay, let's move from the air to the sea. Ukraine, famously, lost most of its conventional navy early in the war. And yet, they've managed to drive the Russian Black Sea Fleet out of its home ports.
And this is the maritime dominance segment. What we saw at UMEX was the evolution of the sea drone. We've moved way past the prototype phase and into a mature naval platform.
Right, we've all seen the grainy videos of the sea drones hitting ships. But the models at UMEX were different, weren't they?
Drastically different. First, let's talk about the Magura V5. This is their stealth hunter. It has this specialized V-shaped hull, and get this, only 500 millimeters of it sits above the waterline.
Wait, that's roughly knee height. In the middle of the ocean, with any kind of wave action, that would be totally invisible to the naked eye.
And nearly invisible to radar. Radar always struggles to pick out small objects in what's called sea clutter, the noise from the waves. The Magura just hides in that noise. It does 42 knots, has a range of 450 nautical miles. It's designed to sneak in, hit hard, and vanish.
Oh, okay.
But the Sea Baby, that's where the versatility really comes in.
The Sea Baby. Cute name, deadly capabilities.
It's evolved into a multi-role platform. It's no longer just a kamikaze drone you ram into a bridge. They showed off configurations fitted with 10 tubes for 122 millimeter Grad artillery rockets.
Wait, hold on. They put a Grad launcher, which is normally on the back of a huge truck, onto a sea drone.
Yes. This allows for shore bombardment. They can pull up just off the coast, unleash a barrage of rockets, and speed away before the enemy can even think about returning fire.
That's insane.
And they also showed versions with remote-controlled machine guns to fight off enemy patrol boats and helicopters. They're turning these drones into reusable naval assets. It's a mosquito fleet, but with the firepower of a destroyer squadron.
That is terrifyingly efficient. I mean, it completely changes how you have to defend a coastline. You're not looking for big ships anymore. You're looking for these tiny, heavily armed speedboats that cost a fraction of a Corvette.
And it proves you don't need a billion-dollar cruiser to project power. You just need ingenuity and the willingness to accept risk on unmanned platforms.
Speaking of ingenuity and saving lives, let's go back to the ground. You teased a story in the intro about a robot holding a trench. I need the full details on this because it sounds like something straight out of a Terminator prequel.
This was the story that had everyone talking at the NAN-UDI stand. It just perfectly encapsulates the human-centric battlefield concept. There was a Ukrainian UGV, an unmanned ground vehicle, deployed to a frontline position.
What kind of UGV? We're not talking about a little bomb disposal bot, are we?
No. This is a combat platform. Tracks, armor, mounted weaponry. It was sent to a forward trench position that was under extremely high threat. It held that position for 45 days.
45 days without a human operator physically touching it.
The human operators were safe in a bunker miles away. The robot was armed with a machine gun turret. It just sat there in the mud and the coal holding the line. Every 48 hours or so, a logistics team would run out, do quick maintenance, reload it. But for the vast majority of that time, the robot was the only sentry in that sector.
Robots do not bleed.
That was the quote from the developers, exactly. It held the line against infantry assaults. But Alex, while the combat story is sexy, the logistics side of this is actually where the war is being won. By late 2025, reports were indicating that UGVs were delivering 90% of supplies to the front line in sectors like Blackrosk.
90%? That's a staggering number.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the last mile of logistics. That is the most dangerous mile on Earth. Driving a truck full of ammo down a road that is under constant FPV drone surveillance is a suicide mission.
Yeah.
People die doing that every single day. Now, robots are doing it. If the robot gets hit, you build another one. You don't have to write a letter home to a mother.
That is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Saving personnel. It shifts attrition from flesh and blood to silicon and steel.
It is. And we saw commercial partnerships springing up around this too. There's a company called Millennium that partnered with Ukrainian Armor to distribute the Ajima. It's this rugged, amphibious UGV. The world is realizing these aren't just toys. They are essential logistics hubs for modern war.
It's fascinating how this tech is rippling out globally. It's not just staying in Ukraine, the lessons are being exported in real time.
That brings us to the global ripples. We saw this so clearly with Shield AI. They're a major U.S. defense tech company known for high-end autonomy. They have this drone called the VBAT.
Right, the tail sitter. It's a very distinct looking machine.
Exactly. It takes off vertically like a rocket, then transitions to fly like a plane. And the story came out that the VBAT was secretly tested in Ukraine. It was used to provide targeting for HIMARS strikes.
So American tech went to Ukraine, learned how to survive the crucible, and came back better for it.
That's the feedback loop. At UMEX, Shield AI was showing off the VBAT armed with new missiles, directly leveraging that combat experience. The UAE is buying heavily into this too. They bought Anavia heavy lift drones and are positioning themselves as a hub. But the underlying tech, the software, the AI navigation, it's all rooted in the lessons learned from the Ukrainian defense of Europe.
It really feels like Ukraine has transitioned. At the start of the war, they were desperate for any weapons they could get.
Now, they're the experts. And that's the key takeaway. Ukraine has transitioned from an importer of weapons to an exporter of methodology and innovation. They are proving that software, AI navigation, and low-cost autonomy can defeat expensive legacy hardware. They were writing the textbook that every other military, including the US and China, is now frantically trying to read.
It's the sovereign crucible concept all over again. Pressure creates diamonds, or in this case, diamond-hard AI navigation systems.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a provocative, maybe unsettling thought we need to leave the listeners with.
What's that?
We are witnessing the democratization of precision warfare. Ukraine is a state actor, fighting a righteous defensive war. But the technology they're using, cheap drones, AI on a commercial chip, home-made sea drones, is accessible.
I see where you're going. It's not exclusive to major powers anymore.
Exactly. If a smaller nation can use this tech to neutralize a massive naval fleet and hold trenches without soldiers, what happens when non-state actors get this tech? What happens when a cartel or terrorist group can buy air superiority off the shelf?
That is a chilling thought. We usually rely on the fact that terrorists can't afford an air force. But if an air force now costs $50,000 and fits in the back of a van,
It effectively levels the playing field in a way that major powers might not be ready for. The monopoly on precision violence is over.
a sobering question to end on. The rules of the game haven't just changed, the entire board has been flipped over. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.